Checkpoint 1, secured. Checkpoint 2, secured. Checkpoint 3. Checkpoint 3 secured. All hands secured. Opening bunker. Welcome to another Wednesday Night Live here at the Patriot Think Tank. As always, please make sure you hit me up in the comments. I will be interacting with comments throughout the broadcast, whichever platform you're on, Rumble, X, Facebook, or even YouTube. I'm still broadcasting to YouTube. So I want to get that out of the way. Folks, definitely before I get started, I want to make sure if you have a moment, take a walk over to Twitter or X and give me a follow there. I'm trying to grow the following there, so I'm trying to kind of import some of my users. I'm still going to stream to most of these platforms, but I'm trying to grow the following on Twitter in particular, or on X. Just for the long haul, right? Just to kind of protect myself in the long haul. So if the 18,000 people on Facebook right now will just get up and walk over to that room. All right. So also, before I get started, just want to remind everybody, T-shirts are available. All right. So you can find the online store, the link to the Etsy store on the website, www.thepatriotthinktank.com. And I just put up the one that I have on now is actually available. A couple of new Article 5 ones came up. So good stuff coming from there. All right. So I want to get into some of these topics today. And also, hey, let me know where you're watching from. Always want to see where the viewer is coming from. I know there's a good 6,000 or 7,000 on Facebook. Not that Facebook's let you know that this broadcast is happening right now. But just for the fact that, whenever you do pick it up, right? Because a lot of you just stop at the channel later. So whenever you pick it up, let me know where you are watching from. All right. So let me get rid of that. Okay. Now, a few topics on the board for today. One of which I'm going to start with because I know it's going to get me all riled up, and I can then get on to the other two topics that I wanted to touch base on, and that's the story in Ukraine, the narrative that's being played for Ukraine. Now, this narrative has been played. I've been saying this from day one, so I've been saying this since they caught me out there with that fake tank video. Even before that, I've been saying the narrative doesn't make sense. It doesn't follow history. It doesn't follow the history of this conflict, and it doesn't follow the actual events that went down as this was growing. But the narrative from the Biden administration, and really from those who are handling him, whoever you want to speculate that to be, is that Russia has now invaded Ukraine, and they're liable to go into Poland or any other NATO country in Eastern Europe. Now, that's nonsense, and it's nonsense. I'm going to explain why, and I'm going to try to keep it simple. All right, so the people in the back, that are a little slow, can understand. This entire thing went down about NATO entry, about Ukraine's entry into NATO. Period. They don't want them. They don't care if they go to the EU. They care if they go into NATO. And going into the EU would be something similar. They're not going to become a part of the EU. But that being said, they still, to this day, dance around the topic and act like, well, it's up to Ukraine if Ukraine wants to commit. No, NATO needs to step up. And, well, they're not going to do this, right? Because they're getting what they want. They did this on purpose. But if we want to end this, and this is why you hear Trump say, I'll end this in 24 hours. And he's serious, because all he has to do is on the first day, on January 20th, he will, or January, whatever it is, January 20th, he's sworn in, I think. He'd get up on a podium and be like, just want to announce right now, as of today, there is absolutely no chance of NATO becoming a part of Ukraine. I mean, Ukraine becoming a part of NATO. The second that gets said, the conflict is over. And here's why. Putin doesn't want NATO on his border. He said this a million times prior to having any conflict or anything like that. This is just not something that's acceptable to Russia. And, despite, I'm not sitting there saying Putin's a good guy. It's not about defending people. It's just what happened. Putin does not want Ukraine to become a NATO country because he's going to have NATO troops on his border. So for the rest of the narrative that like, oh, these Ukrainian warriors are fighting so hard and blah 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 blah, and I'm sure they are, but the point is that ain't why. If Russia wants to take Ukraine, Russia will take Ukraine, and they'll take it in a matter of days, maybe a week. This narrative that their military is far weaker than we thought it was, and it's all nonsense. The goal right now for Putin is to keep constant conflict in Ukraine until he gets that assurance that they will never be let into NATO. Taking over Ukraine, for those coconuts who just can't wrap their head around this, would put his border, with Ukraine now being a part of Russia, would then put his border with Poland, which is a NATO country, hence defeating the purpose. But by keeping conflict in Ukraine, he can simply keep NATO out of it, because if NATO tries to go into it, they're going to get involved in the conflict, and now we're on with World War III. NATO knows this. They ain't going in there. They ain't going in there. All right? But while this entire money laundering scheme with these weapons continues, and they keep demanding any Republican, because there are Republicans, any Republican, and there are quite a few actually. McCarthy was one of them. And any of them that are supporting more war in Ukraine, because that's what they're doing when they say send these funds. Ukrainians don't even know how to use half of the weapons that we're sending them. This is all just This is all just money laundering. All right, and even with all of those weapons, it doesn't matter. Russia will still take them out in a matter of a week if they wanted to occupy Ukraine. Fortunately for the world, they don't want to occupy Ukraine. They want NATO out of their backyard. Imagine we had this with the Cuban Missile Crisis, where we had the Soviets in Cuba, and it was like, that was not okay. And we made it clear that it was not okay, and almost went to nuclear war over it. It's really not different. It's the same concept. You pick who you want as the good guys and bad guys. The point is, neither side wants their enemy on their freaking border. And there's no way this ends until Russia does that. So, and I guarantee you, if Trump comes in, his first order of business is going to be making that announcement. And he hasn't said it publicly, but I'm getting the drift that that's what he plans. It's the only way to end it in 24 hours. But he will if he goes in there and he says that very thing. NATO will never accept Ukraine as a member of NATO. And again, if that happens, the conflict is over and a deal is struck and people don't have to die in mass. So just for those who still think like they're listening to the news and they're like, and what did he say? I got a clip from the State of the Union here. He starts it off by getting into this very thing.
What makes our moment rare is that freedom and democracy are under attack both at home and overseas at the very same time. Overseas, Putin of Russia is on the march, invading Ukraine and sowing chaos throughout Europe and beyond. If anybody in this room thinks Putin will stop at Ukraine, I assure you he will not.
I assure you he absolutely will. Not only it's not even a matter of he's not even going to take Ukraine. That entire narrative was just nonsense. And if I thought Biden was coherent and actually had a hand in these policies, I would start getting on him about it. But I don't. So I always leave Biden alone, because he's just going in the back eating lollipops when this thing's over. Right? But then he goes on to talk about the weaponry.
Ukraine can stop Putin. Ukraine can stop Putin if we stand with Ukraine and provide the weapons that needs to defend itself.
The entire military-industrial complex got up and cheered that one on. The entire freaking military-industrial complex. Like, that's the entire point of, like, I guess I just don't understand. This is so easy to validate. Like, this is not my opinion. This just went down. This is recent history. We're not going back and looking at like Abe Lincoln and what he was thinking at a particular moment. We watched this happen, and still we have people, a decent amount of people, I would say the same 25 or 30% of the population who are mass formated. You throw in the bots with that, and it makes it look like half the country believes this. But I think most of the country is just ignorant as to what's going on and how this happened and the whole deal. But it's important to remember that in my entire adult lifetime, Trump's the only one. I've been on this planet for 50 years. Trump's the only person who did not start one of these proxy wars. And look at what's happening. And the second he leaves office, I mean, it was they didn't even let the freaking body get warm. As soon as he leaves office, or get cold. As soon as he leaves office, boom, we got the Ukraine. We're instigating this Ukraine conflict, and we absolutely instigated it, sending the cackling coconut Kamala Harris down to friggin' speak, and she's out traveling the friggin' world, dropping nuggets about how great it would be with Ukraine and NATO. And then everything pops off. Nobody was shocked that it popped off. Nobody. Alex Jones was not a genius for saying it was going to pop off. This was current history that we're watching unfold. Like, we just watched it unfold. And yet they still were able to rewrite the narrative and convince people. If I see one more thing in my Twitter feed about how brave these soldiers are and how they're going to stop Russia, and they're not going to stop anything. They're just going to keep dying until a U.S. president steps up and says they're not going to be a part of NATO. That's what's going to happen. All right. So I knew I was going to get all fired up there. So I want to get on to some other topics here, because I gotta be right on the hour today, guys, because I am actually flying out. I'm going to see my bug out property over in West Virginia that I purchased with my brother, and we're gonna go. We got some repairs to do. We're trying to rebuild this hunting cabin, so it's gonna be a fun week of just chilling. We may actually get to stay in the cabin this time around, so that will be really cool. As we're just trying to rebuild it, but. So I got to make this pretty on point as far as timeline, although I say that all the time, and the next thing you know, it's going on. So I wanted to talk about Representative Adam Morgan. Now, you may be like, well, George, who is this Representative Adam Morgan? And what is the point of bringing him up? Well, Adam Morgan is a House, I believe he's a House rep in South Carolina. And he just recently is going viral and the last time I saw something like this was Matt Gaetz. And before that, I don't even remember the last person I saw. But I want you to listen to what Adam Morgan had to say with respect to this large construction project that the state of South Carolina was going to be contributing $400 million in tax dollars. And Adam voted in. I don't know if he actually voted in favor, but the fact that he was ready to vote in favor fired up his constituents. And this is going to make my point about the whole Article 5 piece later on. But he saw it going around with his constituents, all this like anger and angst, that he was supporting this, and he changed his mind because of that. And here's what he says.
The pressure in here in Columbia is for me to not even vote red on the board. Y'all might not know this. A dark money entity that was created on Tuesday, the day after we voted for this, I went home and a attack piece went out in my whole district about the fact that I voted for this. I get that the people in Columbia, that the lobby wants me to either not vote or to vote green on this, but my constituents want me to vote red, and they want their tax money spent on core government functions, on their roads, on their schools. That's what they want their money spent on.
So,
they don't want us in here trying to play this government planning thing where we in our bureaus can figure out where the jobs should be, who should be employed, how much money should be allocated where in the private sector. It never works. It's socialism. It's never worked anywhere before. So what are we doing trying to do it here?
but would you consider the fact that South Carolina's track record on bringing major projects into this state has a winning record, and therefore, again, commerce should be listened to rather than those people back in your district?
Do you hear this guy? Do you hear this guy? Like, he literally stood up on the House floor for South Carolina and is telling Adam that, you know what, do you really think, like, and he's serious, and Adam calls him on it. But, like, he's like, do you really think that, you know, your people in your district ought to be holding up something big like this that experts and successful men have put together? I mean, it's crazy, but this is the mentality of some people. This is the mentality
That may not have ever brokered a deal, may not
Never brokered a
understand what
deal.
it means to being a project, may not understand economic incentives. So what you're suggesting is we should listen to the people back home in your district rather than the people at Commerce that have been successful at bringing these mega deals to South Carolina.
Mr. Rutherford, I don't think that you could have espoused a philosophy that disagrees more fundamentally than me. I completely disagree with you, and I think that you believe what you just said. But no, I 100% am going to listen.
You hear? And he said, I think you believe what you just said. Right there, like the guy tried to speak because he realized what he just said. Like, he realized how asinine that is. But it only became asinine to him after it got called out. Like, when he turned around and said, I believe what you just said. I think you believe what you just said. Like, it just made it instantly. It was like instant regret, right? It should put him in a meme or something like that.
To the people back home who I represent in this House, and you should listen to the 40,000 people in your area, and not the bureaucrats at Commerce, and not the lobbyists, and not the multi-billion-dollar international corporations. You should listen to your constituents like I am. So yes, I will always fall back on the common sense of the wonderful people from Taylor's and Greenville Eastside, far more than I will ever listen to unelected bureaucrats, other representatives in here who have been here for far too long and have maybe managed a whole lot of these deals, and far more than I will ever listen to any member out
So,
there.
Mr. Morgan, we don't.
And how epic was that? I mean, how epic was that? Like, he's telling him outright. He's just like, look, you know, I've only been here for a little while, so you just definitely there's definitely those of you out there who have been around far longer and have managed a lot of these kinds of deals, right? And this takes it back to how the founders expected the nation to be run. And when I say that, I mean, like, the idea is that it's all done locally. Like, this is where the disputes happen, right? This guy who's talking this smack right now, like, his constituents are hearing this because it's going to go viral. And when they hear it, they're going to be like, what? And so, and in the age of information, like, these individuals are vulnerable. State legislators are vulnerable. All right. It's much more difficult to fix a state election than it is a federal election where an entire state is voting at once and there's millions of votes coming in. Like, these are, these elections, again, 40,000 constituents, they might be, you figure not everybody votes, right? So you're going to end, even though they should, right? But you got kids and underage and things like that. But you figure 20,000, let's say 20,000, right, come out to vote. 1,000 votes here and there can absolutely knock this dude out of office. And here's the thing, right? When this happens in every single district, right? When all the districts are acting this way and all the districts are fully aware who their representative is, and what, like when you look at Adam Morgan's district, They knew exactly that what was going on. They knew what he was supporting, and they knew it was a freaking problem, and they made a big freaking deal about it. And he responded. And I can tell you it'll be a humble experience for that other doo-doo when his constituents get back to him and start telling. It's a very fragile thing. You can't pump in 30,000 votes in a 40,000 person district. It's much harder to get away with shenanigans in these local elections. And that's a big piece of why it's so important. And it's the same thing with convention of states. I went over last week the people that were given, that channel, what was it, Cash Kelly, the Streetlight, where I put up, hey, you guys should check out convention of states, and the rant that he went on about it because he wasn't happy with the organization and all these things, and he was upset that he's like, oh, it's this big organization with 5 million people, but it's managed in these little pockets in these districts, and it's like he didn't even understand that that's how it had to be. Like it has to be formatted that way because each district, like whatever district you're in, that's the only influence you're going to have. You're not going to influence someone else's district. The idea is to get people across all districts to influence their guy or gal and get them on the right page. In order to do that, you've got to have an organization in every district. That's a lot of organizations. It's not easy to run, especially when it's grassroots, right? But it's out there and it's running. And there's 19 states that they've been able to accumulate with like 18 looking at it this year. So this is how, again, make civics great again, right? This is how the nation is supposed to run. And if you can't read what's under here, guys, it's social studies sucks. But this is how the nation is supposed to run. The nation is supposed to be run by you communicating and knowing well who your local legislator is. Many people, many of these 5 million grassroots, many of them know, personally know, like they text back and forth with their representative, like they're accessible. And that's how it's supposed to be. But it's not, because everybody still looks to the federal government as if somehow it's all powerful. Federal law will trump a state law. That's gray matter. That's gray matter. If the Constitution allows it to, yes. If it comes to a federal immigration law, you can't make a state immigration law that will overrule a federal one because the Constitution gives the federal government power to manage the border, despite the horrific job that it is doing. But and again, there's still avenues for states, and the convention can even address this by making it clear in the Constitution that states absolutely have the right to defend their sovereignty. Like there are things that need to be written in via amendment that the founders were like, you didn't just understand that? Like what kind of freaking system are you guys? What have you done to our freaking republic that we gave you? What are you doing to it if we're at a point where it's not obvious that the federal government should manage the borders, right? But some of this language does need to be clarified, right? And all three topics, term limits, right? What is it? Term limits, government overreach, and fiscal restraints. As long as these are the three topics, they're all restrictive. So this particular convention cannot add one iota of power to the federal government. Not one. Each topic is regarding restricting power. Each one. And we could all go on, I've had my episodes where I shout it out, and I'm probably going to do one again soon, where I ask everybody, what is it, what is it that you want to see? What amendment, is in your bucket list? Of course, it has to be germane to these three topics. But even if it's not germane to these three topics, there could always be another convention called. And I say this all the time as well. The key here is to call it, get the process done, get ratified what we can, but get the process done. Because the only thing holding it up and making it take so long is this irrational fear that everything's going to go haywire. There's no process. I don't understand it. But that's all it is. There's just ignorance that we're dealing with right now, not stupidity, ignorance. State legislatures are regular folks, and they get elected in. They know the Constitution pretty darn well, but they don't know the intricacies of calling a convention of states because it's never been done before. But there's plenty of historical data, plenty of historians, there's plenty of everything. There's plenty of founders' notes, there's plenty of everything on how this runs. But until that fear gets taken away, and that's what finishing the process will do, like, don't let them scare you out of your constitutional power. Do not let them do that. Do not let them scare you away from the powers. When we say that the people have the power in this country and people get negative about it, and they're like, really? Do we really? Yes, we really do. You just have to know what the powers are and how to go about using them and what the process is, and then follow the process. Follow the process. Daisy over on YouTube. Look at that. Daisy over on YouTube. Good to see you too, Daisy. Thank you for the comments. They definitely, guys, comments help distribution. So even if you're just telling me where you're from, or if you're not a commenter, I get it. But even if you're just saying, hey, I'm, watching from, the People's Republic of California, or, or the great state of Texas, or wherever, let me know, because it definitely helps distribution. Make sure you're hitting that like button too. I never asked for that stuff, and I should. Every time I watch someone else's video, it's like, first thing they do, make sure you click that like button, and I never do that. and I should, but I just don't. I don't know. It is what it is, I guess. But good to see you too, Daisy. Thank you for watching. So, all right. There's a third thing that I want to discuss. And for this, I actually would appreciate some substantive comments, because I've listened to both sides of this, and I'm firmly on one side, but I kind of understand where the other side is coming from. They're just wrong. And that's Twitter. So if you're not aware, not Twitter, TikTok. So if you're not aware, today the House signed a bill that, bipartisan, by the way. So there were about 50 Democrats that voted against it, which is about the amount of Marxists that they have infiltrating the party in the House right now, and maybe more, I guess. But pretty solid agreement that TikTok needs to be banned nationwide. Now, I get it from a creator standpoint for those that invested their time in TikTok, because I'm kind of that way now, where, it's not that Facebook is banned, but it bans me, right? So like when I go live and I got 18,000 followers, and I see that there are 78 impressions like a day later of the live event, it's like how does that even happen? How does that even happen? But and it makes no sense, because with 18,000 followers, it would make sense for them to put it in as many people's stuff as possible, because, well, in essence, they have ads. Like, I am monetized on Facebook. I don't get really any money from it, because once they started shadow banning me, I stopped producing videos, which maybe was the goal. But at the same time, there's only so much time in the day. I don't do this for a living, so I do this for the love. I don't need them to pay me. But that being said, right, that's why I spread myself off across platforms. And that's why I'm trying to get people to start following me on X, which I actually pay for the blue check on X, because I was just curious to see what it does. But it doesn't appear to really mean much. But that being said, I paid for it because I do appreciate the free speech platform, and I actually am an advocate that we should be paying for social media. It bothers me to be the product. I don't like that. I don't like being the product. If Facebook had an option for $10 a month or something, and they couldn't take any of your information, and I believe them, I would pay it. I use Facebook. I'm on Facebook. I connect with friends and family on Facebook. All of that. And if I'm going to use it and the product is going to have some value, yes, I know. I know that they shadow ban me. That pisses me off, right? But at the same time, I still have 18,000 followers there, and That's far larger. Like the way that I got those 18,000 followers is that Facebook was just late to the game. Like when I first started, I started with YouTube and then I went to Facebook because YouTube suspended me twice. And now I had 2 weeks of suspension, but I had like a month and a half that I couldn't use it because if they picked something out again, they would take the whole channel down. That's why I don't promote YouTube anymore. I still stream there, but I don't promote it anymore. Like you'll see when I put the tags up and things fly on the screen for this and that. With the exception of my end screen, there's no YouTube presence anywhere. I want to honor the people that followed me there already, but because I don't know if I'm, there's no telling when they'll throw me off and when something will happen or, that I just don't even bother. So we got True Flag action at Rumble. How are you, sir? True Flag's been around for a while. Got a new tag for everything I'm sharing. Hashtag True Faith Action. We'll keep that in mind. I know you do post some pretty cool stuff, so I definitely will be on that. Thank you for watching. But I want to get back to Twitter and stop talking about myself for a second. So they're passing this bill, or at least it's through the House. Now, this is going to be interesting to watch the Senate. Now, the bill seems to be bipartisan, but who knows what's going to happen in the Senate. So let's see how this goes down. The reason some people are against this is because I don't think they really understand how much of a threat the CCP is, not just to the United States, but to the world. Like the CCP, by far, with all this Russia garbage, by far, there's not even a close second as to who the most dangerous regime in the world is right now. There's not even a close second. They are so far advanced in their infiltration of the United States. The idea that we would be okay leaving an app out there, with letting them make an app to data mine our people is insanity. This is the reason Huawei's not allowed to sell here. Because they stole all that technology from us to build that company. And then they go ahead and start using it to data mine. There's no way you can let a company like that do business in the United States. You cannot. And any company, ByteDance is who owns, it's BYTE Dance is who owns TikTok. Any company that's based in China is absolutely beholden to the Chinese government, is absolutely beholden to the CCP. The CCP says turn left, they turn left. It's owned by, like, this idea of their economy is a complete house of cards. It's all owned by the government, all of it, in the end. Even though they got proxy owners who are like, yeah, this is the CEO and this is whatever. The company is absolutely 100% run by the CCP. And I guarantee you, you can look at the president's cabinet and look at all the defense secretaries, everybody, guarantee you their kids have TikTok on their phone. Like it's not about cat videos. Anything that you watch, and this is why whenever I see somebody come up and try and enlighten me about something politically and I see TikTok and a logo, a TikTok watermark, I just scroll. Because anything that gets through is CCP approved. So even if they think they're onto something, they're not. It's almost guaranteed that if somebody's on there and they don't get taken off, and it gets through and gets to go viral and doesn't get shut down, then whatever they're saying is somehow in the CCP's favor. And I mean that even for things that are like, even for things where, they may be talking about corruption in the U.S., that could very well, if it's not real, if it's wrong, then it would absolutely be in the CCP's favor because it causes more confusion. And it causes more problems. And they get to pump out all the garbage to our kids. If you've never seen the videos showing like what, because they have their own version of TikTok. If you've never seen the videos of the difference in content between what gets promoted in the United States and what gets promoted in China, they're two very different things. Two very, very, very different. In China, it's all about values. It's all about, national, being prideful about your nation and supporting China and it's all like good stuff for China. Where like you look at our TikTok and it's a bunch of doo-doo young chicks catching hot dogs from a hot dog gun with their mouths. That's the difference. So the idea that it's somehow censorship or something like that, it's not. It's not censorship. It's absolutely unacceptable. And even if you want to say it's censorship, I heard one guy say, well, it's this is the same as trying to take someone's gun away. And it's like, no. Not unless the person holding that gun is a soldier for the CCP and he's about to shoot an American citizen. Then you can make that analogy. Mike, how are you, sir? Back from Bible study. Nice. Well, I went ahead and kind of broke down Ukraine, saying, what did I miss? So I broke down the Ukraine situation just to clarify for people after that BS State of the Union, which, obviously I'm responding too late. I was going to come on and do something for it, but I just didn't have the time. But I figured I'd wait for today because honestly, the whole thing was BS anyway, right? But the Ukraine piece really gets under my skin because I keep seeing all this stuff about Ukraine. The soldiers are so brave; they're fighting and dying and da 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 da. And I'm just like, dude. And I write this now. I comment on those videos when I see them, and I'm like, and Instagram will take the comment off, but Twitter or X, they let you comment, and I'll comment on there like, look, they're all dying to get into NATO. Is it really worth it? And that's my comment. So I kind of talked about that, got into, I might even play it again just for you, Mike, because it was, I love this so much. Did you see the Representative Adam Morgan in South Carolina did this great exhibition of what it is to be a state representative. And I've already watched it like 15 times, but I noticed that there are some people who jumped on, in particular with Rumble. So I might just play it again just because it's that cool and everybody should see it and share it and get it out there and make a big deal out of it. So let me go ahead and find that again. Here it is. So I'm going to play it again. Listen to this, Mike. You're going to love it.
The pressure in here in Colombia is for me to not even vote red on the board. Y'all might not know this. A dark money entity that was created on Tuesday, the day after we voted for this, I went home and a attack piece went out in my whole district about the fact that I voted for this. I get that the people in Colombia, that the lobby wants me to either not vote or to vote green on this, but my constituents want me to vote red, and they want their tax money spent on core government functions, on their roads, on their schools. That's what they want their money spent on. So, they don't want us in here trying to play this government planning thing where we in our bureaus can figure out where the job should be, who should be employed, how much money should be allocated where in the private sector. It never works. It's socialism. It's never worked anywhere before. So what are we doing trying to do it here?
But would you consider the fact that South Carolina's track record on bringing major projects into this state has a winning record, and therefore, again, commerce should be listened to rather than those people back in your district that may not have ever brokered a deal, may not understand what it means of being a project, may not understand economic incentives. So what your suggestion is we should listen to.
You hear him in the background like, like just roaring to tear into this dude.
The people back home in your district rather than the people at Commerce that have been successful at bringing these mega deals to South Carolina.
Mr. Rutherford, I don't think that you could have espoused a philosophy that disagrees more fundamentally than me. I completely disagree with you, and I think that you believe what you just said. But no, I 100% am going to listen to the people back home who I represent in this House, and you should listen to the 40,000 people in your area and not and not the bureaucrats at Commerce, and not the lobbyists, and not the multi-billion-dollar international corporations. You should listen to your constituents like I am. So yes, I will always fall back on the common sense of the wonderful people from Taylor's and Greenville East Side, far more than I will ever listen to unelected bureaucrats, other representatives in here who have been here for far too long and have maybe managed a whole lot of these deals, and far more than I will ever listen to any member out
So,
there.
Mr. Morgan, we don't.
All right, so not all heroes wear capes, right? This guy is my hero. When I heard him, my brother sent that to me last night. He's like, you may want to put this up when you go live tomorrow. I was like, oh, hell yeah. When I saw that, I was like, hell yeah. Hell yeah. And Mike, and for those that don't know Mike Arnold, he is a regional director with Convention Estates. So if you have questions about Article 5, I'm able to pop up comments from everywhere right now. YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, everywhere. So Rumble, all of it. So if you have questions, this is a great time to take advantage of it. I can post Mike's comments up there as well as your question. And then Mike, I don't know if you saw the broadcast last week. I didn't see you on there, but I can't really see everybody. But we'll get in. I'll get into it later with you. And for those that didn't see last week's broadcast, I went ahead and made a comment on someone else's live event. This channel, Cash Kelly, the Streetlight. They're good guys. I don't always agree with them, but they're good guys. And when you're gonna try and go out there and get some different opinions that you're not always for, it's good to at least do it when there are sane people who disagree with you. And I think that's the category they fall in. I agree with them on a lot of stuff too. So it's not like I'm just sitting there disagreeing with everything, but it's just one of those things where, I went on there and I made a Convention Estates comment, and then they went in and tore into me. I guess the dude had a bad experience, but you could watch it from last week. But I played the clip on the show and then kind of went to work with the rebuttal because, I kind of realized, like today the chat's kind of slow, but like, when the chat's moving and somebody puts up a comment and then I disagree with it for whatever reason, then, they want to come back and rebut, and you really can't, right? Like now if it's a slower chat, then I can go ahead and I'll do that. And I'll let that person, I'll have a little conversation with one person, and I don't mind doing that, but I understand why a lot of shows don't, because they're trying to monetize and they give a shit about that kind of stuff, but I don't. So like in the end, I just want to engage people. I just want people engaged in civics. I want people learning self-governance, and I want people understanding Article 5. So whatever I got to do, if it's 1 at a time, 10 at a time, 20 at a time, I'm gonna make it a point, to try and get that done. So I think my rebuttal, so I took it to Wednesday Night Live is what happened, Mike. So when I heard the comments, and I was getting frustrated because I was trying to comment back, but he was just going on and on. And then I just went ahead and responded. I'm like, wait a minute, I got a channel. I was like, maybe I should just respond on my channel. But Mike, I would tell you to watch the video because you may want someone to try and reach out to these guys, because it's not like they weren't like so negative about Article 5 or anything. They had specific negative experiences at the moment that they got involved with the people, like their district captain or the other guy was saying something, I forget, but it sounded like they were niche experiences, things that I've never experienced with any of the grassroots. So it might be worth reaching out to those guys and trying to approach them backstage and get them on board, because they sounded like they were down with the idea, but they just, they had issues for other reasons. So that's the only reason I'm mentioning it to you now. But yeah, I want to get back to this Twitter concept. So I'm curious to know just, what people think regarding this. Because people's instincts are, oh, you shouldn't be able to censor. And while those are good instincts, you also have to understand the situation. Because you could say, oh, well, you're censoring them. Or you could say, but if I told you, we were censoring, something from the some propaganda from the Soviet Union, or the Soviet Union back in the, and when I say this, I mean Soviet Union, right? In that time, I'm not misspeaking. I'm saying back in that time when it was hot, and the conflict was hot, and tons of misinformation and espionage and everything else were going on. Ideological subversion was in full effect. How do you think we got to where we are? So like all of that stuff going on, and there was something that the federal government could have did to a Russian company at that time. It's the same thing now, except China is far more a threat than the Soviet Union would ever be. They completely own Hollywood. By the way, I meant to mention this. There is a documentary on the Epic Times. If you guys aren't subscribed to the Epic Times, for all of you who say, when someone asks you, like, where do you get your news from, right? And you probably get into, I mean, at least most of my subscribers and followers will get into the whole, well, I hear a story, then I go look it up, then I validate it, then I look for source documents, and we go through that whole speech. Well, I could tell you, I mean, I still look for source documents, so I don't trust anyone, but the Epic Times is absolutely, in my humble opinion, the best news source out right now. And when I say that, with a particular focus on the CCP. They've got inside, they started, just so you know their history, they started in China and fled to the United States because they weren't allowed to report on the things that they were reporting on. And they fled to the United States, set up shop in Manhattan somewhere, and started a hard paper, like an old school newspaper. And now that's obviously all gone online. They've opened up Epic TV. It's such a worthwhile, and you could test it out just to validate what I'm, just to validate me. It's only, they got some promo now. It's like $1 a month or something like that for like 6 months or something. And even after that, it's less than $10 a month, but it's a constant, well-sourced news media that you just don't see much of anymore. And their documentaries are absolutely freaking phenomenal. And they just did one on China's ownership of Hollywood and how it started, giving tons of examples of things that have happened in movies that you may or may not know that they happen, the reason that they happened, and they happened because the CCP, and it's all down to the money, right? It all comes down to money. China didn't have to spend any. They just had to open up stuff to their market. And once they opened these movies up to their market, Hollywood was just ready to sell this country down the freaking river to make that money. I mean, we're talking $250 million off of one hit movie. But in order to do that, they had to edit the movie in ways that China would approve of. It's sickening when you watch it. It's sickening. Like, they took the Taiwan patch off of Tom Cruise's jacket. It's a small thing. You don't even notice it in the movie if you're just watching it. But when you see that there was an original jacket and it had Taiwan on it, they pulled it off. Of Top Gun. Like, China is influencing Top Gun, which is like Americana. But it's not just that. It's every single facet of it's completely owned. When I say owned, it's completely run. Like, Hollywood cannot put out a movie without China's blessing at this point. That's basically how it is. Because if they do, then they're not going to be allowed into the Chinese market, and that they value getting into the Chinese market more than they have love for this country. Like, that's what it comes down to, is that they value that more than they value the United States of America. And we've all known, right, how bad Hollywood's been and all of that, but this documentary is just freaking epic. Like, you need, and trust me, you do that $1 subscription. I don't get paid by the Epic Times. I'm just telling you to do the right. I'm telling you for your own good. Once you subscribe and you start going through their Epic TV documentaries, I mean, the stuff that they uncover about China, and they have freaking sources on the ground in China. No other news media has that. And they have an operation going on inside China that's continually being attacked. The CCP keeps blowing up all their equipment and everything, and they got to flee and move to another area. Like they've got legit sources inside China getting the scoop out, dude. And for a country like China, where you simply cannot get information from, there are people walking around saying, oh, how great their economy is. No idea that their entire real estate market collapsed. No idea that their entire economy is about to freaking fall to pieces. Because that information doesn't get out. The only information you get to see is, them acting like they invented something that they didn't, that they clearly stole because they steal everything. So with the Epic Times having that kind of connection and that kind of reporting, it's just absolutely priceless when you look at the worldscape today and who the greatest threat to the United States is. Russia's not even a sidebar. They're not even relevant. It is all about the CCP. So to have them data mining our citizens with TikTok and the idea that this evil country, I mean evil, you've got the Uyghurs in the concentration camp. I mean, they're worse than Adolf Hitler by multiples. By multiples. Complete with the concentration camps and everything. They've pretty much decimated the entire population of Uyghurs in that country. The entire population is almost gone. We don't know for sure the exact numbers at this moment because it only comes out in spurts. You get these like updates when someone can get information out of there. But the last update had their numbers dwindling significantly. And that's just one atrocity. Tens of thousands of Christians being slaughtered there. I mean, organ harvesting. I don't know, my thing says I disconnected. I don't know if that actually happened or not. Let me. All right. So I don't know what the experience was on your guys' end, but my OBS studio just said disconnecting, trying to reconnect, and then it said reconnected. So I don't know if that means you had a gap or if it means that that everything just flowed and it was able to buffer it properly. I'm really not sure. So let me know in the comments if you saw any kind of gap there. I'm not really sure what went down, and I am curious to know because I am a one-man show. And when you are a one-man show, you need to make sure there's no producer, right, to save you. So you kind of have to, you got to know what's going on. All right. And my YouTube feed is still good. It's like, yep. All right. Outstanding. So as usual, my shout out to Rumble. So just so you guys on Rumble know, all right, even though I've only got like 686 followers there, consistently week in and week out, there are 15, 20, 25 people streaming on Rumble. It's always light on the comments from Rumble, but I always got the people, the viewers there, and that's with 686 followers. That's amazing. So for those that hear me talking about Twitter and all that stuff, Rumble is on that same page, right? I've never had a problem with Rumble. I've never had them do something that hostile towards my channel or towards my page or anything like that. They've always been solid. And so for that reason, I just want to go ahead. Like right now, I'm just going to take a look. So there's so Facebook right now, there's one person. Now I have 18,000 followers on Facebook. Let's just put this in perspective. Like, and these people engage me all the time, by the way, right? So I got two. It just went up to 2 on Facebook. But Rumble, right? So 18,000 followers on Facebook, 687 on Rumble, 19 people, as I say this, watching on Rumble, and there are 2 watching on Facebook, and on YouTube, there are 4. So at Twitter, there's like no one because Twitter always looks like it's frozen when I'm looking at it, but then when I go in, it looks fine. But Twitter is okay because Twitter, I'm just putting content up. I don't expect a lot of viewers to be on Twitter. You know, we're new there. I mean, I've had an account there, but I've never used it. And again, like 2 months ago or so, decided to start getting active there 2 or 3 months ago, and it's been slow going, but it's going. So I'm going to let that continue to grow. But I just want to give that shout out to Rumble though, because you guys definitely make it good. So all right, so let me see. I'm hitting the hour right now, folks. So like I said, I am flying out this evening. I'm going to be going to flying into JFK, and then from JFK, it's to Jersey, to Old Bridge. And then from Old Bridge, it's immediately jumping in the truck and heading out to West Virginia with my brother to go get our bug out pad. We bought a bunch of raw acreage out in West Virginia, and it's got a beat up hunting cabin on it, but we just resided it and put a new roof on it, and we added a little bathroom extension, and we're kind of making it livable so we can start working on the property as a home base. So I'm kind of excited to do that. And for that reason, I want to make sure that I am on time, up and ready for this flight. So, but I appreciate everybody coming on. If you're watching this late, definitely leave the comments where you're watching from. I always like to see where people are watching from. It always, we're light on the comments today, but comments help the channel go around, right? Comments, likes, all that stuff. That stuff is a free way for you to help support, someone trying to make the message. Hold on here. Okay, so that being said, folks, on that note, I'm out.